ancestors. And he swore an oath when he had conquered the world. And the oath states in 324 BC at Opus, "It is my wish now that all wars coming to an end, that you should be happy in peace. From now on, let all mortals live as one people in fellowship for the good of all. See the whole world as your homeland, with laws common to all, where the best will govern without regardless to race. Unlike the narrow-minded, I make no distinction between Greeks and barbarians. The origins of citizens or the race to which they were born is of no concern to me. I have only one criterion to distinguish them, and that is virtue. For me, any good foreigner is a Greek, and any bad Greek is less than a barbarian. If disputes ever occur amongst you, you will not resort to weapons, but will solve them in peace. If need be, I shall arbitrate amongst you. See God not as your autocratic ruler, but as a common father to all, and thus conduct yourself like the lives of brothers and sisters within the same family. I, on my part, see you all as equal, whether you are white, yellow, red, olive, or dark-skinned. And I should like you not simply to be subjects of my commonwealth, but members of it, partners of it. To the best of my ability, I shall strive to do what I have promised. Keep as a symbol of love this oath which we have taken tonight with our libation." This is what Alexander the Great said. This is why Alexander the Great was great, not because he conquered the world, but he conquered out of love to bring the world together in peace. So this is what Alexander the Great would say if he were to come out of this portal and talk to you today. So we're over here at Persephone. I made a effigy to Persephone. She's here over in North America. There were a lot of Indians here, so I put a headdress on her because she was queen of the underworld. There's a crystal skull here, a way to communicate with the dead ancestors, a way to bring forth her knowledge and her gift to mankind. And I've added on some jewelry because she was a queen. And just wanted to give the general idea that she is giving a gift, the gift of seeding the world and bringing forth the plant life. I'm trying to find the mysteries behind Greek mythology and the mysteries behind our religions and the essence of what our religions have taught us over the years. I'll get into that a little later on as far as what the underworld really does represent and what the underworld really means. But at this point, it's just a way of presenting her little doorway to the world, a way of focusing in on what kind of thoughts or what kind of images she might project into our minds. And so that's why I've put this thing together. A few items that I happen to have that work together for this kind of a structure.
What's the significance of the crystal skull?
Well, Indiana Jones and the crystal skull. I'm sort of an amateur archaeologist, and this is an Indiana Jones drinking mug from Disneyland. It's not actually a crystal skull, or I might have a lot more financial power than I do right now. But we wanted to get the image there, and it's not really so important that you get the actual crystal skull as that your mind can focus in on the projection from the other dimension, the underworld, or the other dimension that we eventually will go to, our consciousness will go to. So you don't necessarily need an actual quartz crystal skull, though it might help and it might be more valuable. But you need a way to mentally just focus in on the atmosphere of the underworld and the underworld god. The crystal skull is, our bone is like crystal, and so the crystal and skull sort of represents the infinite nature of our consciousness. It goes on and on. And so through time, even though we die, we come back again. And that's an important point. We all are going to come back to this planet again, so we want to make the planet healthy as we live here. We want to clean up after ourselves. We want to make things better for our friends and our neighbors. We don't want to pollute. And we will be returning many, many times, so we want to think about that while we're living each and every time. Because if we pollute this world, eventually we're going to come back to a real bad place, because we will have polluted it to the point where we all can't live happily together. And I think that's what the projection of the Persephone is that she, as the earth goes through the seasons, the plants grow, they build up, they die, and then they grow again. Just like we grow old, and at the winter of our lives we die, and then we come forth again like new seeds and new consciousness and new bodies. So as we go into the underworld, our consciousness finds another entity to put our consciousness in. In the womb of a pregnant woman, we move into that consciousness, into the baby in the womb, and we come forth from that womb. That's basically what the thought's about, trying to project what we've all learned in Greek mythology. Well, as an amateur archaeologist, I wanted to double check on my facts. So I Googled on the internet maps to Hades. And I found this interesting map by Viagagio. I'm not quite sure how to even pronounce his name. But he shows a drawn map of Hades, or a map to Hades. And this map is positioned this way, but if we turn the map this way, we start to get an idea of what we're looking at. We have Lake Okeechobee right here and right here. We have Tampa Bay right here and right here. We have Charlotte Bay right here and right here. We have this line of I would say meteor craters right here and here and here. And we have the inlet into Cape Canaveral right here. So, and then we have St. John River and Jacksonville right up here. So the maps have changed slightly, but not all that much. So this is a map to the general area of Eden, where Hades was located. Some of the people that went to the underworld would go to the Elysian fields. These were fighters who fought in battle, warriors who deserved the best part of Hades. And they would go actually to the area around Tampa Bay. And then the people that didn't deserve such a good area, they would go over here to this side of the state of Florida, and they would be stuck over here. And well, they had different parts of Florida they would send individuals. And you have the River Styx, which with Charon, that would carry the people across the River Styx, and he would carry them across the Atlantic Ocean just north of the equator along the river that's in the Atlantic Ocean, and he would bring them all the way across the Atlantic over into Florida. So naturally, when Hercules was looking to go into the garden of into the Hades to bring out whatever he had to bring out in Greek mythology. I'm sorry, I don't have the whole tale on my tip of my head. He had to come over here, and his battle was actually done in a physical realm rather than a spiritual realm. And then underneath this map of Florida, we have another map of Hades, which actually shows the area of the Anclote River. This is the Oceania, which would be the Gulf of Mexico. This would be the Anclote River.
Can you point it a little more towards the camera?
Yeah, this would be the Anclote River, and the way the Anclote River curves and wraps around the area in this area. And I don't have a close-up picture of, oh, I guess I do, of Tarpon Springs. So this is the Anclote River in Tarpon Springs. And we see the four figures of Eden here carved out by Poseidon. We have the upper torso of Poseidon. Down here below Poseidon we have the head of Atlas and his upper body and his arm sticking down here, and he's almost kneeling down here. And then across from Atlas we have Atlas's wife Hesperus. And we see her head, we see her face, we see the back of her shoulder, we see her lower back, her buttocks, her upper leg, her knee, her lower leg, and her feet. And then behind Atlas's rear end we see a serpent head, and then it goes off into a curving river over here. So we have the dragon laden. So we have the four figures of Eden, the Godfather, Adam and Eve, and the serpent, all drawn out on the landscape of Tarpon Springs, and they're all drawn out on the river that was the river of Hades. So I think these two maps, even though they're not exact portraits of each other, indicate that Florida and the area around Tarpon Springs was the prime location of Hades and the Garden of Hesperides. They even show Persephone's garden south of Tarpon Springs here, which would be, actually it would be, if you turn this map over, most people can't recognize this for the four figures they are. This is the way we would normally look at a map, and I looked at this for about 3 or 4 months before I finally turned it over and I could see the four figures. It took me 4 months to turn the map over. Once I turned the map over, it was easy to see the four figures. But if you have it properly set up here north to south, according to this map, the Grove of Persephone's would be Palm Harbor, where all the oranges grew back in old times. So it's a pretty good indicator that we're at the proper location. And one of the rivers was called the River Lilith, and the first wife of Adam was called Lilith, and we have a dog right here which I've named Lilith. So it all seems to kind of match up. Oh, and the palace of Hades would have been the aquifer, would have been the underground aquifer, where there's an underground river running underground, and according to Greek mythology, underneath the Garden of Hesperides there was an underground river as well. So all these facts seem to come together to indicate where Eden and the Garden of Hesperides really was. Eden would have been Florida. The Garden of Eden would have been the river that was carved out by Poseidon, and then we get the river being carved out in Judeo-Christian mythology in the Bible of God carving out a river for Adam and Eve. Well, God made the stars and the galaxies and maybe other universes, but as an afterthought he came along and he carved out a river for Adam and Eve. And I would think that if you knew how to make galaxies and stars and planets, that you might not forget a little river in the process. So the only way a little river could be carved out would be as if gods came to a planet Earth and decided to terraform the Earth, and while they were terraforming the Earth, they knew that eventually these gods, these ancient aliens from another planet, these mermen and mermaids, would eventually die. They weren't actually gods. They knew that they had a mortality. But they also knew that since they were situated here on the Earth, eventually they would die, and they were equipped with a serpent-like bottom torso, the bottom part of their body was fish-like. So they wanted to create a creature that they could reincarnate into, that could walk amongst the planet on the surface of the earth. So they had to create a creature that would do that. And they went through many experiments to create this creature, many different forms of mankind, till eventually they were satisfied with the creature that they created. And that's where we get the story of Adam and Eve, or Atlas and Hesperus, their epitome of mankind, a creature that they could eventually produce children, and the children would produce children, and when these gods were to die, they would eventually become part of that family structure and reincorporate into the wombs of the mothers in the child, and then that they would be born as men and women amongst us. So it's my belief that the 10,000 gods that came here with Poseidon, the 10,000 mermen and mermaids, have become men and women in our society, and their original home was somewhere on another planet, having come here with the technology and the genetics to produce creatures that they could adapt to the new planets that they were coming to. I'm over here at a little structure I've kind of put together. I'm using the flag of Switzerland because my family's from Switzerland, the von Sachs line. And before they were von Sachs, they were the Merovingians of France and Germany. And the crest here is the crest of the von Sachs family. And you'll notice that this is like a bear with a rope, a gag tied around the bear's mouth. And there's a shield with two sacks. And it's all situated on top of a helmet, a warrior's helmet. So I got that off the internet, and I just put it together in a little frame because I was proud of my family's work in Switzerland. It took 200 years for my family to bring democracy to the Swiss. My family in Switzerland in the 12, 13, and 1400s went broke arming the peasants and providing military aid to the peasants and teaching the peasants how to fight the Pope and the Emperor. And they were fighting the Pope and the Emperor basically because the Pope and the Emperor were corrupt. My family was righteous and wanted the righteousness to be extended down to the people. So in order to have the people get their righteous share of the earth, the people had to gain their authority over their land above and beyond what the Pope and the Emperor were offering. So first my family in the form of St. Bernard started the Knights Templars, and then the Knights Templars were attacked in France by Philip the Fair and the Pope, and half the Knights Templars went into Scotland and the other half went up into Switzerland. And that's how my family went up into Switzerland. And this is a Templar sword, or a Masonic sword. And democracy wasn't won by a prayer. They had to get rid of a lot of bad people. And a lot of battles were fought, but in 1499, Ulrich von Sachs brought independence to the Swiss people. The Swiss people have forgotten that. My family has about 6 or 8 castles in Switzerland now that belong to the Swiss people that have never really been paid for or ever really returned to my family. I have this as sort of an outpost. On the North Pole and the South Pole, there's little igloo outposts, and there's 3 poles to the earth. There's a pole at the South Pole, there's a pole at the North Pole, and there's a third pole, which is the Amphala, which is the belly button. And the belly button comes out of the Garden of Hesperides. And so I put this little image together as claiming the Garden of Hesperides for the righteousness of the family line and for civilization, because civilization doesn't just come about naturally. It has to be derived by conflict and wars and eliminating bad people, because there's a greed element involved in the bad people. And then again, the people have to rule themselves. So my family gave up the royalty of Switzerland in order for the people to have a democracy. And the first modern democracy was established in Switzerland. And France, Germany, and America are direct extensions of the democracy established in Switzerland in 1499 when Ulrich von Sachs defeated the emperor and the pope. He didn't do it single-handedly, but he was like Alexander the Great. When he went into battle, he was at the front of the line. He rode a white horse. Everybody knew who was coming, and they got out of his way. And then the rest of the army came in behind him. Just like Alexander the Great fought at the front of his army, my family has fought at the front of their armies. They didn't sit in the background and order their armies into battle. They went into the battle at the front of their army so that the rest of the army would have courage in the efforts of that family. Just as Jesus stated the truth in front of the temple at Israel about the moneylenders in the temple, it takes that kind of courage to establish truth again. And so the truth of the fact here is that the navel of the earth was here at the Garden of Hesperides.